I had no idea I would struggle with infertility as an adult. After failed relationships, I believed I was to become a stellar auntie, and I was fine with it. And then I reconnected with this incredible man from college, who eventually became my husband. Finding him, I assumed we'd become parents. Hard to be with someone that great and not believe we would have someone running around who looked like the two of us. Based on family history, I thought it would happen instantly, and my identity would change from childless to mom overnight. Instead, my identity shifted from childless to infertile. It was hard as a woman in my mid-30s to discover this thing my body was created to do. It couldn't. We tried naturally for a year. Sounds like fun, and it was, for a while. But after 6 months of trying, and age 33, hope became hard. And every month brought grief as we discovered yet again no embryo stuck, and we were not going to be parents in 9 months. We moved on after a year to infertility diagnostics and treatment. In that year, my body was poked, prodded, and needled as our doctor tried to figure out why we were not yet parents. Hope-filled, we tried intrauterine insemination, a more involved version of what some refer to as the turkey baster method. For 5 months, over the course of a year, we tried to conceive in this manner, and our hearts broke with every month. Meanwhile, 18 friends announced they were having their first, second, third, and fourth children. Many of these were our closest friends, and we struggled to figure out what community looks like in our 30s when our friends board the plane of parenthood and we're still waiting for our boarding pass. In the midst of it, though, we found a silent community developing in the waiting room of the fertility clinic. There were sweet exchanges observed, and there were funnier moments, including the morning when a packed waiting room either watched or listened to a news report about a couple who had stolen a child. One husband leaned over to his wife and said what we all were thinking: we could have saved a lot of money. And there were the times of camaraderie where a brave woman would strike up a conversation as we waited for blood draws and ultrasounds, and we shared war stories of procedures done, contributing symptoms limiting us from conceiving, and the heartache of failed cycles. It really felt like a sisterhood of the defunct ovaries. This last fall, we decided to throw a Hail Mary pass and move forward with in vitro fertilization. We knew the procedure was expensive emotionally, physically, and monetarily, but we would kick ourselves if we hadn't tried absolutely everything. And if we ended up not pregnant, we could hopefully move on. It was harder than either of us anticipated. My body was persuaded to develop 15 eggs in one cycle. It became hard for me to stand for long periods or walk very far. But I remember gratitude in the midst of the pain, that it was a sign my body was responding to treatment. As I lay in recovery post-egg retrieval, I remember crying and feeling relieved that I finally did good when we heard the number retrieved. After years of feeling like I was failing, I cheered that my body finally did what it was supposed to. From the 15 retrieved, we beat the odds and ended up with 5 good embryos, 2 of which our doctor transferred. And while the retrieval was hard on my body, the transfer was remarkable. Not many parents can say they saw their child when he or she was merely a ball of cells, but we can. I lay awestruck as I watched on a screen as those 2 embryos were returned to my body, realizing this was the closest we had ever been to pregnancy. In my world, love did come first. Then came marriage. But then came follistim, IUIs, lots of tears, scary, huge needles, internal ultrasounds, an invasive retrieval, blood draws, a transfer, progesterone shots nightly in my bum for 2 months, a long wait, a positive pregnancy test, and we hope the baby carriage will arrive in the fall. And as my body has shifted from infertile to pregnant, it's taking a bit longer for my identity to shift. Part of me wonders if I'll always identify as infertile. This was a hard-fought battle, and I don't think anyone who goes through this ever forgets. While we're grateful, we also know those who've struggled for 10 years or more, been through many more rounds of IVF than we did, and that baby carriage still hasn't arrived. And as I prepare for the identity shift into mom and raising a child in a world where things don't always go as expected, I've come to this conclusion. Life isn't always fair or easy. Often there is struggle involved, and you may still not end up with what you hoped for or planned. And yet, we choose to continue to live in hope.